welcome everybody to another great reading show. Andrew today has an incredible reading that he's prepared for us, and it's from a being called Angel.
And this is one of the people that has been around as a listener for a really long time. And it shows throughout his reading. It shows how centered and balanced and how ready he is to ask questions, as well as he was able to hear what's being said. And this is one of those fluid readings that many people in their own mind wish that they could have in their own sense, because not only were all of the questions asked and answered, they were expanded on many hundredfold.
Indeed, and those sections where you then talk to him the light language, you guys will see that soon. That was so special, because how else could you describe these incredible children that Andrew, Angel, that Angel has brought to our world, and it's very exciting. We will see a great hope for our future with this reading, and I hope you're as excited as we are to share this with you.
And on a personal note, we had some really special times doing these recordings.
Yeah.
And we're at a point where a lot of these are going to be translated into multiple languages. So 50 languages are going to be coming. We're going to be closed captioned. We have a lot of special things coming, but sit back, relax, enjoy this reading, and we go through another adventure into reality. Welcome everyone to another reading session that we're going to be recorded. We are joined right now by our caller, Angel. Angel, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Oh, feeling really good. It's a beautiful day here in Los Angeles, California. I'm actually in Topanga. Beautiful sunny day today.
Topanga. I know that area quite well. I lived in Chatsworth for a while.
Oh, okay. So yeah, really close. We're overlooking the valley here.
Very nice. So how did you find out about me?
Well, the first talk that I heard was with Chris Hales and Michael Monk on Wolf Spirit Radio, a Walking in Energy show.
Oh, so you're around right from the beginning where we lit off like a rocket.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And it's just what a ride it's been, Andrew. It's amazing. Just the information has been so powerful, so fluid, and it's something that I keep resonating with, all the time. So I'm learning so much from you.
So what about the materials jumped out at you? What was it that has jumped you to have a reading?
Yeah, it's just a broad spectrum of information: the health side, the sovereignty, everything having to do with the ancestry, speaking to the fire, all the different tools that we need in order to connect to the earth. All of that it's something that I feel like I'm right there with you, and so it's great to have, that extra information to kind of enhance this awakening I feel that's happening and surging within me.
Wonderful. So you know how this works. You have the Akashic record of this world and 20,000 other worlds open to you. What kind of questions do you have?
Well, the first thing is I wanted to get into my ancestry. My parents are from Michoacan, Mexico. And my father comes from a small town in Michoacan called Piñícuaro, and my mother comes from a town called Cuaro. And so one of my questions was, how far back have this lineage, have they been there in that particular area?
I'm scanning. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Right away, the first thing that I've got coming out of your energy field when you're asking about Michoacan, Mexico, is a Huichol Indian shaman named Don Jose. And he lives in the high Sierra Madre Mountains, and he's living right now. He's a living being that is going through all of the ancestry of the Huichol shamans that has been spread all throughout the Central America area. And there are a number of other shamans that are doing this too. And he's already met you somehow.
Very interesting, huh?
So your lineage goes back in Mexico to around 200 AD. So for the last 1,800 years, you have been in the North or America Turtle Island or South America Huacachaya reality expression, pre-Columbus, pre-Pizarro. during Columbus and Pizarro, you tried separating the two realities. You tried to have much more of a shamanic life, separate of the plagues that the reality invaders were bringing, because the realities blended and blended and blended. As you had no choice but to live in both sides, you lived on the European side. You took over a European DNA skin suit in Algeria, and then made the trip from Algeria to Florida, Florida to Alabama, is where you, oh, this is where you started to spiritually have all sorts of things. Let me see, what is this? So you leave from Algeria. You are about 28-year-old male, been working on ships since you learned how to walk. Your father and father before them was shipmasters, but that was your first life in a European skin suit, separate of the American one. So you came in as a soul spark to see it from that other perspective. When you made it to Florida, there was this huge accomplishment of trip, the belief that the captain knew everything, and the different scientists and magicians that had come there and alchemists that had come on this trip. There's about, I don't know, it looks like 15 ships, like a whole bunch, probably around 2,000 people. They land in Florida, and then they make it to Tampa Bay, and from Tampa Bay they make it to the harbor in Alabama. It's huge, huge harbor, and it's like a harbor they've never seen before. There's food and fish, and there's buildings and cities there.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
This is where you like quite literally find artwork that was predicting these ships that were coming. Like, there are pictures of you. And this is where your reality broke down, that you understood you lived there. And the Christian programming that you had as a child had broke down. And this is where you started multidimensionally living, not just one life, not in the European, but the Japanese life, the Australian life. This is where you broke open as a soul and said, all right, I am going to find freedom, and I'm going to make sure if I separate into 10 or 12 or 15 soul shards, each of these soul shards are going to have the techniques to find home. And home is anywhere that you had a life where you've done ceremony as a shaman on a regular ancestral basis. So the ancestral energies that you're asking in your question, who are you, what are you, where are you? You are a Sierra Madre Mountain Mexican shaman that works with peyote, that works with the mushroom plants. That is your extreme specialty when it comes to those types of alchemy.
That's very interesting. It just seems to be, that awakening seems to be happening now, and it feels like it's getting stronger and stronger, that connection there. And that brings me to the drawings and also the music. I fronted a band called Mezcla for like over 13 years. About 5 years ago, I kind of left the whole scene and turned my back on the band and everything. I just felt like I needed to separate from that whole reality, and but continue with the music, but with my family. I had my son Copal Angel, and he's now 11, and my daughter Violeta, she's now 3, and it's just, I felt like I needed this focus, and to focus on the family and to nurture them and to be there with them, because I felt like it was just extremely precious. So I wanted to understand these drawings that are coming through. I feel like they're actual beings, because there's a lot of these beings with these long headdresses pointing back, not necessarily up cone shape, but pointing back. Yeah. And it's kind of a theme within a lot of the drawings that I do. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, I can. That is your third eye looking for a residual image that this mind can translate into art. Like I translate the Akashic record in English, you are attempting to translate it into art. Something that triggers the parasympathetic body into recognition of the image. That is why artwork is technology. It's the mind technology to convert via hand and creativity what something could look like in another shared reality. Because what you're doing is you're working with the long skulls. When you're a shaman in any of the major chakra areas around Earth, you'll be functioning with a long skull. That's what long skulls did. They went to the chakra points, they went to the nexus points, and they did their great magic on world and off world there. And they made multidimensional high schools, we'll just call them that had different levels of educations. That's shamans in first grade or shamans that were in 25th grade. So these multidimensional high schools in those areas eventually became spiritual universities in the astral worlds. And you are connecting to those astral long skulls still in existence in the paradox 40 million years ago, attempting to still translate the infinite message of how to show residual image, what's in your mind and in your heart, and onto paper that can be passed around in a shared reality. You know, the old saying of the police officer who has somebody that witnesses an accident and there's 20 people, there'll be 20 different stories. But you're making one story of one image from your heart-mind connection.
Yeah, and the music seems to be included in this because there's something there as well that I'm trying to figure out how to use the music to help us around me, how to use the toning, you know, and how to just get better at that. Just kind of free-flowing at the moment. I just feel like it's extremely important to release that and share that with everybody.
Yes, when it comes to toning, it's about understanding that as musicians, once you get into the chemistry of the band and the chemistry of creativity, your aura is a part of that. And that's where some musicians break down and how spirituality is a part of their music. So when you get that base foundation, well, my aura is a part of my music. Well, what can I do to amplify my aura? And the first thing is tuning forks. So if you really want to get into high powered toning, like let's say you have a friend that's dealing with cancer or some types of lung issues, whatever, you're going to want to use tuning forks high up in the tops of your auras, at the very tops of your crown chakras, so that you can indicate to your soul spark, hey, I'm opening the hourglass hole so more infinite energy can come through while I go into this focused, disciplined moment where I'm using my musical skill and intoning, and then making harmonies with all the.
And is there a particular key?
There are multiple keys that you can use. Let's look at it like guitar. You've got a you got a guitar, and so you want to play a chord. Let's say you're toning on someone's back, like between their shoulder blades. That's just some nasty energy there from whatever. You center on the spine, and you give them the bass note, the mom. From there, you're going to determine through touch if that's the right energy they need.
Okay.
Just like the pick on the guitar, you know where how hard to strike the chord. That's the first energy you're giving the body. The second energy into giving the body is, well, this is how high of a frequency I can go. We need to make sure that my high frequency doesn't cause anything negative into the aura to act. So you're giving them a frequency and a sine wave range you're going to work in, lowest, highest. And then everything is going to be in between that. That's that middle chord that creates harmony. So like a barbershop quartet, you can think of it like that too.
Very interesting.
So toning is music, but it's the sensation of living moment to moment. So the intoning creates photonic vibration. And I say photonic because sound cannot exist without light, because we are beings of light manipulating a DNA skin suit. So we are still light. Sound has residual light in an area. So when you are intoning, you are making a compact, dense piece of photonic light that's like a Rubik's Cube, gets bigger and bigger the more intonations you give it.
Yes, very, very interesting. Wow, that just really gives me a lot to work with. I wanted to talk to you about my son and my daughter.
Okay.
And my son, Copal Angel, someone once told him that they remembered him in Palenque, the past life in Palenque. We went there when he was a year and a half, I believe, and got to visit the different areas within the Yucatan Peninsula. But Palenque was a really special place for us. And what do you see there for us because I really am drawn to that place. I would like to return. It's been over 10 years.
I'm going to speak into you in a light language for just a second, just to
Sure.
have more
Sure.
infinite energy come out for the expression.
Thank you.
Chawata, tachata, hukata, palanque, kupala, chamata, kupala chenda, chimota, kupala chanta, chapata kuta, yita wata, tachama, hukache, chena, ha watachi, chomote, chautuka, kapacha nuta. In that expression, you have completed your spiritual progression by having that child and giving him that name. It is
He's a very special boy.
recognition that you have passed the torch of eldership to a brand new immigration pattern.
Mm-hmm. Very
It's a
interesting.
gigantic victory for you and your soul family. You've created an anchor baby, and many millions of others. You've made it an anchor baby in an area that is, how do I describe it? Going to change the universe.
Interesting.
Teach him about
as
music.
as a young boy, he was very perceptive, and we would see a lot of entities around. And he would describe them to me, and I would just be really, calm about it and just talk to him about it and just sit with him and write it down. And it just seemed like it's something that definitely has toned down at this point. He's now 11. But I was always curious about that, what was going on during that time in his life, and why was he perceiving these entities. One in particular that I really wanted to ask about was when he was in the car. My wife and Gopal were about to leave. My wife had to go back into the house to grab something. He was in the baby chair in the back seat, and he saw an entity in the passenger seat, but he could only see the top of its head, like it was trying to hide from him. And I'm wondering, could you give me any insight on what that incident was all about?
Yeah. Children are still trying to figure out how the DNA skin suit works. And when children like yours, who are what I call source streams, meaning they were a planetary entity that has given up their planetary surface and has come back into a body to bring unity and balance to this world. So at one point, your child was a planet with billions and billions of beings living on it. Now he is a little compact baby boy in human fetus in this astral world that we're living in right now, in this dream world we're living in. So he does a lot of things. And when an entity just shows the top of the head, it is literally something that's called residual image protection. So whoever sits into that car, into that seat, has that residual image protection to them. Eventually, residual image protection can be used against you if you don't have spiritual hygiene and cleanliness. And for him to be saying that at that young of an age just indicates how much he's doing in the other worlds. Maybe 2% of his experience will be here, and the other 98% of his experience will be out there. So teaching him how to be here, how to be chemically here with happiness, like, the chemistry that you have when you're playing sports or soccer, that team thing with that energetic collection of audience. That's meant for him. He is meant to engage that. But he has to have the coping skills to deal with other people's energies, because he's a powerful, powerful empath, and empathic children can easily get confused.
And then my daughter came around. She's now 3. And I sensed a lot of dragon energy around her during her birth. I would draw dragon eyes. Just little synchronicities would happen that kind of told me, oh, there's a lot of dragon energy in Violeta. Her name is Violeta Akasha. And so I was just curious as to the Akasha, why that was really coming to me strong to give her that name as well. And regarding the dragon energy, what do you see there?
I'm going to speak to you in a light language again to bring more infinite energy to this prescription. Wahi chana tida natata ti wakachi namata watati Chamo pa ka chi mote ke hu mate ta cha cha che moka cha wa cha chi cha ma cha ta cha cha ka. She's beyond a dragon. It's not the accurate enough description. As I've described in the dragon webinars, dragons are elemental beings that were created as a sovereign spark from a planet. So a planet can have as many experiences with the people living on its surface as it wants. But one of its fundamental rules is to give an elemental link, a sovereign link of that planet, so that each being has a way to directly connect with the planet without obfuscation. There are other planets that used elemental forms of dragons, and then they came up with another concept. And the best way that I can describe this is a series of planets would come together in a very tightly packed solar system where you could have maybe 10 or 12 gas giants that are gigantic with 7 or 8,000 moons on each one. And each moon was a combination of higher frequency beings on the surface of the gas giants. And when I mean surface, living in the gas, they were an entity, physical, energetic entities in the gas. And then a technology would come and they go from gaseous state to energy state and have incarnations into biomechanical suits on the moons. And that's how they learned reality traveling back and forth. After a while, the moons got their own moons, and they were able to take multiple layers of entities and create an amalgamation of 40 or 50 or 60 biomechanical suits and put them into one big, we'll just call it energy experience. And that is an example of what your daughter is. She is a combination of 40 or 50,000 other beings who, in a sovereign expression of creation, went to a solar system with gas giants, with moons, and then planets with their own moons, densely packed in like a nucleus. And there required special entities of unity consciousness interior of those things and the hollow points of all those planets to make sure the incarnation process was accurate. And your daughter's representation is gigantic to the Hollow Earth and the Argotha network. She was brought from another world, that other world I've described, to be in this world, to be a medium to Hollow Earth, a medium to the Agartha network, to explain what lives inside Hollow Earth is everything that is in extinction on our planet. And it is our birthright to not have extinction as an option here, but to allow all extinct entities to incarnate in their own free-willed expression without our limitations or our expectations getting in the way of their creation. She was used as a medium to the ancestors, the extinct ones.
Interesting, yes. Before she came to us, before she was born, my wife, Beatriz, Betty, she had a miscarriage. And she was having a lot of nightmares during that time, wondering who was trying to come through at that time and why the miscarriage at that moment. Do you have any insight on that?
The miscarriage came at that moment because the system was trying to prevent the proper birth cycle so that when it was time for the next baby to come, that the two of you wouldn't have had all that energy there. The system has predicted the strong people a long time ago. And all it can do is chemically affect you through GMO, weather control, propaganda, etc., until it physically has to go in and zap you at the light body or zap you at the physical body level with scalar weapons. Unfortunately, many miscarriages are scalar weapon based because the baby that came in is breaking the rules. And the system doesn't care. Unfortunately, that it is that right way right now. It's a very selective of who gets in and who gets out.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, then Violetta came along, and we didn't know Betty was pregnant until 5 months into the pregnancy at that time.
Hiding it from the system. Yeah.
I see. I see a lot of the drawings that come through, and at times certain people come through, and my wife Betty has come through in a lot of the different drawings, and I see that there's like maybe she was an oceanfarer in another life. There's something that came through in the drawing. Do you have any insight on her past life regarding being out in the ocean?
Okay, what is her full name?
Her full name is Beatriz Torres.
Beatriz Torres. Just a second here. All right. Her association with the water, it starts, I'm going to call this maybe northern Quebec. There's still lots of ice there, but so not an Eskimo, but a Canadian expression on the other coast. So you could call it more native Indian instead of more Eskimo expression. They do have crops, but they mainly live off of fish because the amount of fish is so abundant. And her connection with the water is, we'll just call it the tribe that they lived with. They would go out onto the ice, and they'd cut certain pieces of the ice off, or break pieces of ice off that were blessed, is the best way I can describe it. Okay. They would like do a ceremony or a ritual on a they'd like mark a big hunk of ice out that they know is going to break off and go down, and they do a massive ceremony and a ritual on it with the whole tribe, and then they'd break up all the ice around it, and they'd stick somebody on that thing and tow it out into the ocean. And she spent hundreds of lifetimes programming the water of ice, having ceremony and ritual on it, and then that energy, as that ice was melting, would feed all life. And sometimes these ice blocks could go a year or 2 years before they were melted, and some even longer. So
yeah, that kind of explains what she's into now, because now she's into oils, working with essential oils, mixing different oils with herbs, and making soaps. And I feel like there's that memory coming back, and it's getting just stronger and stronger, and she's just becoming really, really good at it.
Well, I would encourage her to think about using ice in programming the water for healing. As an example, you can make some ice trays out of wood. They're really not hard. They don't need to look perfect. They just need to freeze. And every time you put water in the tray, you put blessed prayers over them, and then you freeze them. And then the next day you take them out and you let them melt, and you pray over them again, and you freeze them again. And you do that as many times as you can, and you keep those in your ice box to the moment somebody has a broken arm or has a thump on their head or has a bee sting and they need to take the swelling away. And that right there is the magic that woman has in her hands with ice.
Great, I'll relay that to her. Andrew, another question that I had, I've had such a curiosity regarding extraterrestrials and the paranormal and ghosts and all of that, and I wonder, and I see there's a lot of people around me who don't, and I wonder, why am I so curious about these topics,
because it's the awakening. Because it's the awakening, and you just want to know, and you've spent so much time in unknowingness, and your soul spark has been trying to figure out how to hammer knowingness into your DNA memory until one day it did, and you're like, hey, where's all the stuff that's supposed to be here? Where's the flying cars? Where are the aliens? And you began to ask questions, and you didn't find the questions in your system. And ultimately, you're like, hey, guys, what about the awakening that we were contractually promised? And the system is like, just looking off in the background. And you're like, hey, system. And it's still ignoring you until you declare your sovereignty. And the system's like, damn. Declaring your sovereignty means you want those off-world expressions. You want them. You want them as part of your signature frequency. And they're not part of your signature frequency via touched residual image. And that's why you're searching and searching and searching, because you need to touch it.
Andrew, I feel like being up here in Topanga has kind of intensified all that. And I've been really connecting with the stones here and carving into the stones, all the sandstone that's here, and I just really, it's just a major attraction to the stones here and the land here. And I feel like there's a reason why we ended up in this place, in this hilltop.
There is, and this will be the final part of the reading here.
Okay.
So just sit back a second. You're gonna like this.
Sure. All right.
As I described in the earlier part of the reading, you're part of the Sierra Madre Huichol Indian expression. You've lived there, I don't know, 200-300 times before.
Interesting.
Now, think of how much ritual you would have done if you've lived there 2-3 times as a native expression in that magical place before there were cities, before there were wars, before there was any perception other than that was beautiful energy in that area, before all the water was stolen in its pristine form. You have done tens of thousands of powerful ceremonial fires that are still waiting for you, this I Am Presence, to have a ceremonial fire on that land so you can see yourself making an anchor so you could live here in the future with your children.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
This has been really special. Thank you for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. It's amazing. Thank you guys for everything you do. It's much appreciated. And a lot of love to you and protection around you.
All right, man. Namaste.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Now we are going to be recording the follow-up. So do you want to lead or do you want me to lead?
I am thinking that maybe I should close it off and then start to ask you some of the questions about that reading just to give you cues.
Okay.
That way you can just...
Blah, 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 blah.
Do you want that?
Yep.
Is that good?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So let's go back to a 2-shot.
Rolling.
Wow, what an amazing reading, guys. I mean, how much information do you think you could have packed in that amount of minutes, from, Source Children to ice alchemy to Ponce de Leon and those times in Florida to the ancient Mexican shamans? Wow. Where do we begin, Andrew? Where would you like to begin about this reading?
Just like in any reading, where do you begin? I had to sort through information that I knew ahead of time was going to be very influential about the children. But Angel also needed to know something about himself. Something that says, not only have I achieved my own level of understanding and wisdom, but I'm now passing the torch of eldership onto my children, who are now anchored children. The children are very special. I run across special children, crystals and indigos. And there are not many source streams that are in our world and active like this in this format. Teaching that child how to play baseball, how to be in a band, how to have friends is vitally important. 80, 90, 98% of their life's going to be up there. And learning to live down here is going to be the dream for them. The limited dream for them. So when they can have those extreme moments of happiness, connectedness, where the skin suit is working right, where you can make the greatest influence within them.
I think they definitely, with Angel and his wife, I think they're just real role models on
Right.
how one could bring these children forth, and all the things that Angel does, the art, the music, the toning, all these specific gifts that he brings that he can give then to his child as he passes the torch of eldership along. Just alone knowing that is a wonderful thing.
And one of the keys anyone out here can take away is learn a musical instrument, learn a craft, learn something that you can pass on. In the ancient days, people would use wood artwork. They'd make furniture because that was how they would last the next generation. It was the old poor man's way of being immortal, by making furniture yet your family could have for 4 or 5 generations. Many families have, George III, George IV, the same name over and over and over again. And that goes back to the ancient days where you were reincarnating or incarnating back into yourself. So you could come into yourself with the right name that you wanted to go through with.
And that you had all the triggers as well for your
Right.
DNA memories to help you along the way as soon as you came. As we were talking, some of these dragons, for example, they have 75% of their memories. So this is a good way. Yes,
a good
yes.
way to train them through. In Angel's case, when he was encountering the city that in Alabama, that was a light city that was by design meant to attract people that were coming to the Turtle Island Expression before the line in Columbus discovered American history, because that was the history going to be going forward. And there were tens of million magical beings above in the astral worlds and on this physical world, making sure that that moment in time was what was going to be recorded into history that we would believe today.
So he basically went from here to Florida, and then he hit the Tampa Bay area.
In the Alabama, Tallahassee area there. And that's where there were hundreds of light cities. But he was attracted to one light city, which is what I call a city of mirrors. It reflected its residual image to him, knowing that he had lived there millions of times.
Wow.
It was a crystal, a light city that manifested in a crystal that manifested into like a house of mirrors or the temple of mirrors, except it was a city of mirrors. The whole city was constructed via mirrors. So as soon as you came up to it, there was all this action in the mirror until you touched it. And when you look at it, you could see yourself going from this mirror to this mirror, from portal transformation, and all the different lifetimes you could interact with the city and discover how powerful your soul was interacting worldwide. He saw himself in China, in Russia, all over, wherever there was a marketplace, that city of mirrors is there, and you could travel into the Akashic frequency of that and experience what you did before. This crashed that Christian belief system that was in a pod of boats that had launched from an area under a messianic mission. Okay? And they were magicians and alchemists aboard those boats. You know, to think that there wasn't is one of the biggest fools in the world. They were absolutely magical beings, wizards and so forth, but they were church expression. And when they got there, their programming broke down.
It's almost like John Dee, that aspect, yeah?
Correct.
Those types of wizards, yeah. But I mean, just hearing his frequency and his voice, I mean, already
The
just when you
learnedness.
listen, yes.
The learnedness. And when you can bring learnedness through your own expression, it makes readings for me really easy. As you can see, this just flew and flew and flew. And again, this was one of those readings that just about everyone out there wants. But he was ready to hear. And there are others that come that are not ready, but halfway through the reading, they get ready really fast because their frequency is there. He came in not with just the open heart, but with the understanding to co-create with the reading. He was bringing his own photonic light, psychic impressions with each word that I was able to do until we could make this massive interaction of energy that could bring to English the infinite language of what his children were.
And that's another thing that I wanted to come across with you now was the light language that you used. I mean, now when you guys have heard the reading, how else can you prepare the light bodies and explain what you've created in this realm and in this atmosphere of density? It was so important that you were able to say that first with the light language.
Right.
Because it made everything so much easier and understood.
Right. And it's something, it's a tool that I use when I run across an Akashic frequency that needs to be translated in a very narrow window of time. And by giving it the light language, I created a photonic light frequency through sound that stayed within the energy of the reading. And then the children's source energy interacted with that photonic light so that they were their own Akashic record. You often hear me say that I'm connected to the Akashic record of 20,000. That reading was 20,000 plus one. That's the uniqueness of that. So the connection between Angel and myself as a listener and then a person that's being read and how his children interact, because those children have been a part of my frequency through him for as long as I've been around through there. And with that, we're able to come together, and I was able to share my 20,000 Akashic records with that one planet who's still a kid, who's still doing 99% of the work up there. Trying to be a kid too.
But what an honor that is. I mean, to come across these people, and I know I've mentioned this before on some of the shows that, you know, when we're all working together and the people have their readings and we're making the notes and, you know, there's a group of us and we hear what's going on. I mean, some of the beings that you just come across, and a lot of these people, they don't go public, obviously for specific, their own personal reasons, but some of these beings you come across, you just have this sense of peace. And you just know that it's going to be okay because they're there. They're asking the right questions. They're producing what they should. They're on track. Everything is on track. Everything's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. And here is proof. Yet again, here's a runner. Here's a point that says, hey, it's happening. It really is happening.
We live in a day and an age where omens are real. Omens are more than just synchronicities. They are moments outside of time where light translates into mental knowingness. So when you look up and you just know, those are omens. And this reading, in its own way, was an omen for all those that are listening that want to have a better understanding of how to treat special children.
Yes.
You hear his frequency. He plays music. He draws. So for all those parents out there that think you have a special child, listen to this person. Mimic him. Understand him as a person of being of searchingness, the spiritual hygiene that he requires to have that, the own mental time to be alone and yet to still be a father. He has found his special key to do that. And you too can. He can be that shining example of a father out there that every woman wants.
Is there, to round the show off, is there a beautiful light language equation package that you could perhaps say to the audience that they could then play and then start to emanate those frequencies to the children that they, well, every child's special, but I think for each child that they could play to them or maybe repeat for themselves later in their own voice frequency once they've had the basis of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Just let me decide how to process that. When we give an infinite frequency, there's a certain amount of energy we put behind it. So how about I keep it into the frequency of angels' children? So if you think you have a source stream child, or you have a child that is already speaking light language, or you have a child that is got stuff flying off the walls, this will be a light language package for you. And I'll go slow, and some of the enunciations may be a little tough, but this is about understanding you are transmitting a harmonic wave to the child to be relaxed, to be open, to be in the center of the heart, to trigger their pericardium to create sacred space so their heart can fill up with infinite space. And then to trigger the pericardium to grow bigger and bigger until the pericardium is a bubble all around their dermis and the heart can fill up, and that's like the egg, the solid outside with the liquid yolk on the inside, allowing that source stream child to go back to fetus state. So that's what this next light language interaction is going to be. Children that are thoroughly sick, leukemia, cancer at a young age, this can also thing, because this is once again bringing back the womb to the child, which is the infinite source connection. Ti cha wa mapa paya hutata huta te tona tatata chamopa wachi nahata kachi woto watiyang ni chingmo na chingmona te wonacha lus mieteta tu siha ta machota honota hub yatata chamomo miho mahata tamomo nahata koka chehona ni mota tetayaka tawote umati chanata bupata shi hotaka wata kanatakawa wa wata shamoho shamo na shamohota. And it's echoing throughout time. There are times that I do some of these soliloquies and you hear your voice just echoing throughout time.
Yes, there was no words to say it. We just needed to let it echo.
To let it just echo. Let it begin to influence all the infinite source streams that are out there, to discover that fetus time once again.
Yeah.
And for those out there that want to try it for yourself, you can do it. I did it at a slow enough that the heart frequency of constantly opening up your pericardium, which is the egg, the hard shell, so you can make sacred space inside it. The hard shell is the first attempt at sacred face. Those are the contract revocations. And then the light language side fills up the inside of that egg. So it allows you to be pregnant with possibilities once again.
And we also have the light language series. It's being, the final edits are being done, and so that should be coming out really soon as well. And that will bring a big step towards understanding more of the different phrases and themes that you can go with to start employing light language into your daily practice.
Yeah, the light language series was really, really special to do. It wasn't exactly tough. I remember we were sitting in the studios in the very beginning and ironing some of the studio stuff out, but it was such a unique flow to do something that had never been done before. I remember the producer going, "There's nothing like this that is out there."
Yes, but I do
Nothing.
remember the second and third part went well. The
Yes,
first
yes.
part. The first part, it was it was almost as if there was a block to this being brought out.
Right.
It was ice cold in the room. We had to do a lot of fire and ceremony, and every time you began, the amount of energy that you had to take just to get into that frequency, it was like, "No, you shall not do it now," and
Right.
you were like, "I shall," and it was a bit of a battle at
Well,
that beginning.
The biggest battle was it was a completely different kind of skill.
Yes.
So when I'm doing Akashic frequency reading, that's one thing. When I'm translating word for word light language and giving a structure, I'm taking massive synopsises and compiling them down into English, compiling them back into light language, and then compiling them back into English, and then speaking English with you. So it is, for those that are people that are multilingual, it's multi-spiritual lingual at the same time.
A mammoth task, indeed. Yes, yes. But I mean, you did well, but as you were saying, it was really easy. I'm like, no, the first one wasn't that easy. And then once you'd broken that
Yeah,
out,
when broken through it.
it was
Getting
like the
to
grid
ask-
was there.
right,
Yeah.
to ask the right questions in the right format, so the infinite source came out in English with fluid light language afterwards.
Yeah, it was truly beautiful. And we're so excited to get this product out to you. And I think we'll wrap it for today.
Yes, I think this is a good point to put an end, ding, 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 ding,
Ding, ding.
to the roller coaster ride that's Adventures into Reality. Join us next week where we have another amazing and adventurous show. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste.